At the beginning of the year, if you would have told me that Texas A&M had a superstar quarterback who would lead them to a tremendous start, I would have not been shocked. I thought Connor Weigman was going to be a top 10 pick and potentially be a top 3 quarterback in the SEC behind Quinn Ewers and Carson Beck. I thought the guy was really good. Instead, though, it looks like Texas A&M is now going to be led by their redshirt freshman quarterback Marcel Reed. He showed flashes of kind of being like Johnny Manziel this past weekend as he helped the Aggies take first place in the SEC. He came off the bench and absolutely ignited the team, and now looks like the guy moving forward for Texas A&M. But who the heck is Marcel Reed? Who is this guy who just took over college football this past weekend, and how good could he be in the future? Well, today we're going to talk about the insane rise of Marcel Reed, talk about how he got to this point, and how good he could be this season and in the future. But before we get started, if you're a big fan of college football, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you support today's video, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next. Now let's get started and talk about the insane rise of Marcel Reed. So football ended up running in the Reed family. His grandfather was an All-American guard in college and was actually drafted by the Houston Oilers and played for the Washington NFL franchise at the time. Marcel's father, Rod, on the other hand, was the former head coach of Tennessee State. His father recounted how he used to often hear noises throughout the day, and at a young age, he heard Marcel frequently dribbling a plastic basketball and shooting it towards a miniature hoop. He said, quote, "It used to drive me crazy. I swore I was going to take them all down, but my wife would not let me." Throughout his childhood, Reed might as well have been a member of the Tiger football team, Tennessee State, as he would attend their practices, dress out in uniform for some of the games, and would even partake in pre-game warm-ups. He'd throw and catch with the quarterbacks and receivers, and Marcel Reed was born to play football. Rod said, quote, "All the players were like, 'Coach, this kid can throw.' At 5 or 6 years old, he was throwing a college ball maybe 15 yards with pretty good zip on it. So I was like, well, he can play quarterback." NFL quarterback Cam Newton also formed a connection with him, as coming off of his MVP season with the Panthers, Newton visited a 5th grade Reed at his elementary school in the spring of 2016. Cecil Newton, Cam's older brother, played under Rod as an offensive lineman for Tennessee State. Not to mention, Marcel also gained a ton of great perspective from studying the game from a defensive-minded father. He watched how he ran a college football program, and it looked like Marcel Reed was set up for perfect success. As a teenager, he simply loved to play sports, as he played baseball, basketball, and football, and in middle school he had that killer instinct. His coach said, quote, "Marcel hates to lose. When I first saw him in middle school, I took him to camp with varsity, and he honestly didn't have a great camp, but I saw his competitiveness, and that stood out immediately." He would have to face a tough decision early on in his high school career about which sport he would pursue long term. His father thought he'd be a really good baseball player and that it was his best sport, but with basketball, Marcel played well enough to earn offers from Tennessee State and NCAA, but he'd end up going all in with football. He said he liked to be competitive and that he didn't like to lose, and that he would use his basketball and baseball skill set to help him on the football field. During all this time, he was growing up in the Nashville area, and he became the first freshman to start a high school football varsity game for Montgomery Bell Academy. His dad said, quote, "That's special and it says something about him. It says something about his character, and it says something about his ability." That would come midway through the 2019 season, and he was extremely raw at the time. Marcel said, quote, "I think back to when I was playing, and it was all just raw talent. I was just trying to find a fit and a speed of the game, and since then I've come a long way." His coach knew he had the ability by the end of his freshman year, and that he would be a very special quarterback as long as he continued to work hard. Reed threw for over 1,500 yards as a sophomore and even had 15 touchdowns. He also used his legs to extend plays, rushing for just over 500 yards on the season. He said, quote, "I used my legs to my advantage." After his sophomore year, he gained offers from Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Ole Miss, A&M, Kentucky, and Vanderbilt, and plenty of other teams were also trying to get him. As a junior, he passed for 1,200 yards with 10 touchdowns, and once again ran for 500 more and 11 scores on the ground. The year before, though, he was still focusing on some other sports as well, and it wasn't until this time that he fully went all in on football and got a trainer. His trainer said, quote, "He can throw it 75 or 80 yards in the air. He has very elite arm talent and is one of the bigger arms that I've ever trained. It's comparable to NFL talent right now." Reed was already a better football player than his father was, and while watching film, he tried to blend himself to be like Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson, and Aaron Rodgers. He said, quote, "I can run and get around like Lamar, and I think I have the vision of Russell Wilson and the mental traits of Aaron Rodgers." So where would he end up going then? Well, originally he decided to choose the Ole Miss Rebels over a ton of other SEC offers. It became clear during the 2021 season that Marcel was enamored with Ole Miss and its offense and their head coach Lane Kiffin. He said, quote, "Compared to a lot of other college coaches, Lane is just pure entertainment." But then things would change. Going back in time, the Aggies and Reed had plenty of mutual interest, but at the time, A&M had taken a pledge from Eli Holstein. He'd end up flipping to Alabama, as we all know, and this all of a sudden would open things back up. When the Aggies were searching for a new quarterback, they tried to go after Reed, but he really wasn't too interested. Then Reed caught wind of rumors that Lane Kiffin could go to Auburn, so he decided to keep his options open, and eventually he would commit to Texas A&M. As a senior, he completed 59% of his passes for 2,200 yards and 27 touchdowns. He became one of the first players to start all 4 years of high school in private school history in the Nashville area, and his head coach said, quote, "Marcel's ability to extend plays make him exciting. He has a great arm, he can make throws, is very athletic, and is a playmaker back there. There's a lot that Marcel can do at quarterback, and it starts with his arm and ability to run." So it looks like he had a good arm and was very athletic, but with him being really short and kind of skinny, there was a lot of schools that weren't too high on him. Still though, he was considered a 4-star recruit, as according to 24/7 Sports, he was a 4-star player, the number 20 quarterback, and the 295th best player in the class of 2023. So how would Marcel Reed do in College Station? But first, let's hear a word from today's sponsor, MyBookie. Convicted as I am about a certain bet, be sure to place your bet with MyBookie. This season, MyBookie is pulling out all the stops with incredible promotions like a weekly risk-free boost on Thursdays where you can bet without a sweat. If your bet hits, you win big. If it doesn't, forget it. MyBookie will refund your wager. But that's just the beginning. MyBookie is giving away hundreds of thousands in prizes with their Super Survivor and Square contests. Get your entries now in for your shot at huge cash rewards. When you're ready to get started, be sure to use my promo code Fisher50 and make sure to get some extra cash on top of your first deposit. If you type in Fisher50, you'll get up to $1,000 in a welcome bonus bet plus a $10 casino chip. MyBookie's tiered bonuses make it easy to deposit with crypto or with credit, and the bigger your deposit, the bigger your bonus. The bonus would be 100% match up to $1,000 plus a $10 casino chip. With MyBookie, you can bet on anything, anywhere, at any time, and make your season a winning season. Be sure to check out my link down below and use my promo code Fisher50. Well, when he arrived, he was seen as a dude with pretty much endless potential. His head coach said, quote, "Marcel has so much potential. He's around 175 pounds now, so he's going to get in there and get bigger, stronger, add weight, and focus on the sport for the first time in his life." When he arrived at College Station, he joined an Aggie quarterback room that already included Max Johnson, former 5-star Connor Weigman, and Fresno State transfer Jalen Henderson. Throughout the season, though, all 3 of those guys would eventually get injured, and once they got to their bowl game, Marcel Reed was going to have to play. He was proof that a player, no matter how good or no matter where they start on the depth chart, has to be ready for pretty much everything. As a true freshman, he was going to have to start for Texas A&M in their bowl game, and how did he end up doing? Well, against Oklahoma State, he went 20 of 33 for 361 yards without a touchdown, and he had 1 interception when he threw the ball for a Hail Mary and it was picked off. He also had his first career score on the ground. Throughout the rest of the season, though, he ended up throwing 1 touchdown against Alcorn State and also would make an appearance against Mississippi State. Going into 2024, nobody was talking about him though. Everyone was talking about Connor Weigman, the projected top 10 pick and future superstar, who if he could just stay healthy and put it all together in the field, was going to help lead A&M in year 1. Mike Elko had come in to be head coach from Duke, and while A&M seemingly had somewhat of a lighter schedule in the SEC, no one really expected him to be all that good. There was no way they're going to compete in year 1, as there were plenty of other really good teams like Ole Miss, Georgia, Texas, Alabama, Mizzou, and even Tennessee all fighting for that top spot. Well, early on, Connor Weigman showed major struggle, as against Notre Dame, he ended up having one of the worst performances of the season, and Marcel Reed would get an opportunity in week 2. He ended up completing 5 passes against McNeese State, and then would make his first career start against Florida. This would come after Connor was hurt, and in his first career start in the Swamp, Reed would end up going 11 of 17 for 178 yards and 2 touchdowns, with 83 yards on the ground and 1 more score. One Texas A&M site said, quote, "However, even when healthy, it's clear that Reed brings an electricity to the offense that Weigman lacks. Whether it's deep passes down the field or impromptu plays with his legs, the Aggies are better off with Reed handling the reins." Many people thought that Marcel was a much better fit for the offense, but Mike Elko was a bit stubborn and didn't want to give up on Weigman just yet. After 3 more touchdowns and a win over Arkansas, Connor would return to the starting lineup last minute and help drill Mizzou 41-10. This game was an absolute clinic for A&M, and all of a sudden the Aggies were looking somewhat legit. Flash forward a couple of weeks, Marcel Reed was still on the bench and playing behind Connor. Then this past weekend happened. This was the battle for the top spot in the SEC, and both LSU and A&M were the only 2 unbeaten teams left in conference play. With the Aggies struggling and being down against LSU, they would eventually insert Marcel Reed, and immediately this would pay off. Reed would lead them down the field, and they would end up scoring a quick touchdown. It would happen 2 more times, as on the day, Reed would go 2 of 2 for 70 yards, and then ran the ball 9 times for 62 yards and 3 touchdowns. This included also an epic deep pass that was perfectly placed, and LSU's defense had absolutely no answer. Their big-time defensive coordinator Blake Baker could not make any adjustments, and you could watch as the life seemingly left Brian Kelly's body each and every time Marcel Reed touched the ball. In total, he'd end up helping them win the game 38-23, and A&M is now the #1 team in the SEC, has a legit shot at the college football playoff, and it seems to me that it's Marcel Reed's team now. His ability to extend and make crazy plays with his legs is what gives him the ultimate it factor in the offense, and it also seems he has supreme confidence, and every time he's touched the ball, he's made something big happen. While some may not be ready to fully give up on Connor just yet, it looks like Marcel Reed is the guy of the future, and everyone is talking about how the redshirt freshman could help lead A&M to the playoff in year 1, and he's going to have a couple more difficult games to play. I'm really intrigued to see how he plays over these next couple weeks, especially in that game against Texas on Thanksgiving weekend, and we'll see if he's just a 1 or 2 game wonder, or if he is really the future of the Texas A&M football program. But yeah, today we talked about the insane rise of Marcel Reed, how he got to this point, and how good I think he could be in the future. But before we go, be sure to let me know your thoughts down below. Let me know what player I should cover in my next video. And before you go, don't forget to also leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and check out all my other videos on the end screen. Hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.